we might meet our screens. So I might just have some.
Yeah, that's perfect. No problem. But you cut out towards the end there, so I there's some kind of audio issues. But however it goes, we are live. No, we were live the whole time. Um, but when we're recording, sometimes we have a different vibe to it. And what I'm so excited to say is that tonight is a really important call to me, and I am so grateful to be here with Monica, Peter, and Maria because these are characters that are significant in this realm of real magic, which is us. And so I'm really excited to have met Monica on Sunday when my friend Panda, aka Alex Barker, invited me to her course or her call about vision boarding. And I was in a very emotional state. And so I wasn't so into the idea of necessarily being on camera because I've been very teary and I don't even fully understand it. But I also know that I move a lot of energy, and so I just go with it, and sometimes can be a little bit more moody, though I try to regulate myself and watch myself, and I've got people around me to keep me in check too. So I appreciate that. And because of all of those factors, when Alex invited me to the call, I got beyond the fact I didn't necessarily want to be on screen. And I said, sure. And so that's how I got to hear about what you're about to hear about. So, Monica, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Laura. It was so great that you came on, and I'm really glad. I'm really, really glad you did. And as you know, in life, there's no accidents, and everything lines you attract to you the things that you need in the moment that you need them. And so I'm hosting a vision board workshop this coming Sunday, and I'll give a little bit of a breakdown about what we're going to do. So most people know what they don't want. And so they speak in terms of negative. I don't want a lack of money, for example, or I don't want extra weight, or I don't want to be sick. But the universe doesn't speak in negatives, it hears you in positives. So you'll be asking for what you don't want, and then you're attracting more of what you don't want. So it's a little bit more complicated. It's not complicated because that's of the mind, but it's a little bit more complex than that. So it's more than asking for what you want. You have to be at the right you have to be coming from a clear space. So during this workshop, we're going to be looking at the garden or your garden through a visualization. And you're going to look at your lay of your land, which is basically your life. Are there any weeds? Are there any lies? Are there any misconceptions? Are there any beliefs getting in the way? Is there stagnant energy? Is there something from your childhood that you still believe? Are there habits running the show? And these things that we can't see that are incredibly unconscious are the things that are guiding your ship. It's the energy from which you come from that propels your life forward, not so much the things that you're asking for. So we're going to take a look at lay of the land. After you take a look at the lay of the land, so to speak, you're going to pluck out the weeds, or what I like to play, spot the lie. It's a little bit of a tongue in cheek, but that's what we're going to do during the first week. See where those hiccups are that are preventing those seeds of intention from bearing fruit. The second week, we're going to take a look at, okay, well, now I know what I don't want. Now I know the space from which I'm coming from. What in the world do I want? What is it actually that I want? And so the second week is going to be focusing on what you want. The third week, we're going to do a healing session, a little bit about me. I've been in this field for over 20 years. I'm a certified body talk practitioner, Reiki master, certified Ho'opono practitioner, soul responsibility instructor. I have a double teaching degree. So I've got a little bit of teacher blood in me. I've got a teaching degree in early childhood education, went on to Concordia, studied fine arts, specialization in art education. So I'm really excited about the last part where I get to bring all of this together and we do a healing session for the group. a healing is exponential. So your healing is mine and so forth. And that ripples out into not only through your cells and your physical body, but your mental body, your emotional body, your spiritual body, and then, of course, your environment, because that counts. So your environment could be your inner language that you speak to yourself, your own environment, and then that outside, right? Your actual physical environment. So that'll be the third week where we're doing a healing session. And the fourth week, we get to play. This is my favorite part. You're going to take out your paper, you're going to take out your pencils, I don't know, whatever, your post-its, your paints, and you're going to create from this clear space a vision board for yourself. So I'm really excited to bring this all together. We start on Sunday at 10 a.m. And I want to make it affordable and attainable for everyone. I think this is really important. So it's only $99 for the 4 weeks that we spend together. So if you're interested, um, my website's there, so you can contact me. Emailing me is the best way to get in touch with me. And I hope you'll join us. It'll be such fun. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, really grateful that you could join and share. And I'm really looking forward to being there in your class for those 4 weeks to go through the process myself. And what I love is that Rosemary joined while you were speaking. And she often says that environment means in men's minds. I do believe that she says if you unmute, that'll let us know that you're able to speak, Rose. But Rose is a fount of wisdom as well to be able to plug into. And she very much has plugged in and contributed to the Peaceful Inner Warriors United community over the last couple years that we've been connected. So it's really been just plugging in and getting to know who we're in this thing with, because this thing called life is not a thing at all. Or a thing is a noun, and a noun is a thing, person, or a place, right? A noun is a person, place, or thing. And this is far more significant than what we might actually think, because there is the fact that I am an English major, and so I have that background and specializations to teach English to as a foreign language, and then specializations in teaching English grammar and teaching English to children, because I think that it kind of speaks for itself for all of us who are on this call and those who will be drawn to this movement or initiative, is that we're high achievers, generally speaking. We have a greater capacity because we have a desire, we have a thirst to sire that which is in our heart, to flesh out those weeds in our inner environment in order to then actually plant the trees that we don't necessarily expect to sit underneath of the shade of during our lifetime, but that we know we'll leave in the soils for those who come after us, because we lived and because we didn't pave the path, but we blazed one that others saw as so awesome they might leave the paved path to tread into unknown territory too, which is where we actually step into what it means to be a tramp. And by tramp, that is taking us into the warring waters of admiralty and maritime law, though we might not have been aware that that's where we were being drawn when we're making that subtle shift in language, which is jurisdictional. And that is where we start to see that the land gauge of the laws of the land that we're dealing with within this realm of real magic that is full of land, air, water, and space. We start to see what has taken place in terms of our consciousness being how our conscience was used to ensure that we prioritized the head instead of the heart. And what we're being led back to is the heart, which is earth in a different order. And so the acronym for peaceful actually stands for passion, enthusiasm, authenticity, clarity, encouragement. Find your tribe, understand what's yours, love what arises, let go of your attachments to the not now, and let go of your attachment to the not now and love what arises. Peaceful. That's that's the peaceful acronym. And for some reason, I thought that I had more to go or further to go than what I did, because it strikes me that I had said the two L's before then I tripped up and thought that I had forgotten one. And sometimes when we do something and then we think that we've forgotten to do it, then we kind of get into that track or that holding pattern. That there are modalities like body talk that Monica is specialized in and has practiced for a long time that can keep us then tracking back to those places where weeds are planted in the grounds most fertilely. And so I love that we now have that piece to be able to have within the community, because we all bring a piece to the table. And that's what this is about. And why I sit with my mom's quilt that she made me behind me as my wall drop, because I don't do the artificial blank out things. If it's in my environment, you'll see it on the screen because I don't cover anything. And I don't always wear makeup, and I don't always look the part that I am playing when I'm sharing ideas I coined, which means my head is telling the tale, and then we see the coined idea of what you're about to see tonight, which is a presentation that I have I put together starting yesterday. Actually, I started working on this because what I share is so high level that it goes over people's heads oftentimes, because I go too fast, because it comes in fast and it comes out fast, and it's fun to go fast until somebody trips, and then they're falling in the face in the dirt and you're running ahead and it's not helpful anymore. And that's why we have to really be aware of the manor roll, karma, and letters of mark from the souverain of our home or our inner home, which is the heart that we really must come back to. And while we won't get into it tonight, it is important to note the double entry accounting system is a vital part of this and will be what we get into in the course that will be taking place in April. But for this March, for this month, it is time for us to write our story in writing with responsible household management, which is the point of this challenge. To write or correct something, we must write it in writing to convey our key ideas or points. Our points of thought are the issues we want to ensure are considered. Our points of view reflect the perspective we have based on our roles. Our points of contention are the things we wish to question or challenge. All of these points are worth considering when committing to get our metaphoric house in order, and conveyances are vital to practically understanding life from a different perspective. What are conveyances? A conveyance is a legal process of transferring property ownership from one party to another. It involves preparing, executing, and reporting the necessary legal documents to ensure that the new owner has a clear and legal title to the property. Alan's here. Oh, fantastic. He's joined into calls previously, and it's befitting he would come in, where we're just about to speak of voluntary and involuntary conveyances. So, welcome to the call, Alan. It's great to have you here with us tonight. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, very good, thanks. Nice to see everyone there.
You as well. It's really wonderful. It's been quite some time since you've been on a call, because I haven't been hosting as many as what I used to. But that's because sometimes we have to gestate and germinate underground in the darkness where the fruits are of that which is not shared before it is
Thank
ready,
you.
breaking the sacred container.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure, Alan. So we were just speaking to voluntary and involuntary conveyances, which is the process of transferring property ownership. And so I just thought it was very significant for us to start paying attention to the fact that this is what ChatGPT gave me when I asked the question about what conveyances were. And it's important to recognize that what I'm trying to convey to you is best outlined on the next screen. So our person is not something to get rid of, or we will be more limited simply because we didn't learn to claim our right to write a different program for ourselves so that we can live out a different kind of reality that we have been trapped, or than we have been while trapped in High Rose Prism. So it's like Rose oftentimes speaks to heaven on earth and creating heaven on earth. And when we get back to the heart, then we can really start to transform the outer realm that reflects our inner. And as we go through tonight with the depth of information that I am about to share and the controversial nature of what it challenges in the larger scheme of modern culture, cognitive dissonance may make you want to judge and condemn me as the messenger of the message you will be receiving tonight. And I encourage you to take note of the stories you hear yourself tell yourself about me and who I must be in my private life to be doing what I am in public. Because a mixed war is between the public and private. And we are in a mixed war for our consciousness, and our conscience will take the hit until we pay attention to the message you are about to be offered free of charge, but with gratitude for donations should you feel inclined to help me demonstrate the value of what I'm sharing to those who have seen me struggling to convey what I've been assembling since 2019 when I first tried to call a preliminary peace summit, which is now happening in the newly ordered world that we are co-creating now in this moment, and will eventually be able to say in the newly ordered world as past tense. But it's time that we stop being tense about which tense we're in and to just get clear about the fact the present, present moment is the only moment of power we truly have. We're going to be getting into the depths of power at a deeper level through this presentation. We are in a mixed war for our consciousness. I read that. And our conscience will take the hit because this is where karma comes in. Karma is a mark backwards. And when we really start to see the spelling of words and what these words are in their various meanings, based on phonetics of words that sound the same but are spelt differently, that's why you'll see there are 3 rights that I am speaking to in the month, the challenge next month to come. So doing the thing is how we get good at the thing. And that's what we're doing. Knowing the thing is life. So that's where we start to see that life and death are 2 sides of the same spectrum. An event can trigger many things, but the integration process that follows is vital to sustaining them. Life is a journey, not an event for a reason, which is why I wanted to give you an opportunity to be part of the writing challenge next month. And it's writing ×3 because it is the RIGHT of writing what is wrong. It is the writing of a WRITE for writing what is not right until we write it in writ, which means by memory, because we can read what was writ when we read out our writs. And writs are actually part of the Manor Roll, which is what we're going to be getting into in depth in the challenge to come. And we won't get through it all tonight because while I did promise to fire hose, I don't want to drown either. I don't want any of us to drown. So I'm giving a lot of information, but I'm also giving us an opportunity to continue coming together to do it more consistently and to do it privately so that then we feel like there is the sacred container that allows us to share more than we would if it were random people we didn't know coming onto a call we didn't know if we would ever be on the same kind of call again for. So that's the power of actually being part of a course, which is why in part, I wanted also to be part of Monica's, because I can see her in action and I can learn and I can grow and I can connect and better know who is doing other amazing things, connecting with other amazing people than I get to connect to because I got into her room. And tonight she got into mine. And because she did, you got to hear about it. And because I joined in when Panda got in her room, I got to know about it. And that's why the power of the people has always been in our connection. Daily communication on the Peaceful Inner Warriors Assembly, or Peaceful Inner Warriors United Assembly group on Telegram, is where most conversations, if I'm partaking in the online sphere, will take place for me, because every platform has a profile that requires us to invest energy into the platform if we're going to engage through it. So being very mindful of that is part of getting our house in order, which is what we're doing in this month's, as I go through it myself, and then next month when we come together more officially and formally through the calls happening on Mondays from 6 till 7:30 Eastern, if that is a possibility. I had spoke to Monica, and it's no promises whether and or no necessity to be part of it specifically, Monica, if it's not possible. But I did make it at a time that could suit you, because we were exchanging when I was setting the time, and I was going to do it a lot later. And then the fact is that getting our house in order means that mothers need to be able to accommodate their families, or fathers also, but people with dependents have to be able to accommodate their responsibilities. And that is so appropriate for the topic at hand that I thought we'll go with the more convenient time for families, because that's ultimately who will help us connect even more people, because the kids, the youth, are really the ones who will be able to help us turn this around when we stop thinking their age is an inhibitive factor for their ability to contribute to the reestablishing and rebuilding of the framework of the future that will also be called now then. So I'll send daily emails. Participation is by donation, and there's the email that you can send it to. So if you wish to partake, it would be an honor. But oftentimes I don't share what I'm offering, or not wanting to sound too salesy. But in the age of sales, SALES, that's when we start to see that privateerism is what this is all about. So the Manor Roll is also referred to as the court roll, and it determines the roles we take on in the public, which is where the record counts. Karma is the consequence of double crossing another for personal gain that adds up in our public and private lives when not dealt with. And I thought it was interesting because it came to me double crossing, and I thought, well, I wasn't going to necessarily put it, but it was just flowing, and I didn't question. And I don't say that I channel, but in the scheme of things, we are all channels for energy. And so there is an element to no longer trying to say that we are not the thing that so many others have stepped into, making declarations around their abilities and then get defined by the label and then actually limited by the label, which is precisely what we're going to be getting into deeper. And when we realize that marks are the grades we're given in school to condition us to accept letters of mark and reprisal, also called letters of commission, which refer to permission to cross into enemy territory, to seize ships with authorization to bring those captured vessels back to the capturer's home port on behalf of their sovereign. The X connection is where the X was doubled with the addition of another X next to it that represents both the creditor and debtor in the trust based on Noah's curse. Anyone heard of Noah's curse before? It was No, it was new to me as well. And I see that there is a chat, but I'm not looking at the chat as I would. Oh, here we are. Rose is saying home is where the hearth is. If you ask yourself before any action, does it cause harm? It helps us to know if karma is in play, what our intention is in any interaction. Yes. All right. So the X connection is where the X was doubled. And so that was why I thought it was so interesting that I actually wrote double crossing, because if you actually think about tarot and the fact that the final card in the major arcana is the world, is it not? With the XX, which is the two tens.
Mhm. Yes.
So you've got your double cross right there. It's just we stopped seeing the cross as that, and then it became on its side as the X marks the spot. So we'll get into that all deeper later, but the tarot is going to be part of this, and finding a different framework to use than the existing one without fully leaving it behind, but using syncretism as has always been used. Syncretism being when stories of the past are incorporated and adopted into the new story to get just far enough away from the original story to make it our own as the coining of the idea, which is why I mentioned about me being the coiner of the idea and therefore the figurehead telling the tale of the coined idea, because it's very significant in relation to Noah's curse, which comes from Genesis 9:20-27. And the story of Noah's curse refers to the bare trust or naked trust that founded our incorporation into the res publica. Res publica being the public thing or the public affair by definition, and where the republic stems from. A bare or naked trust is a simple form of trust where the trustee holds legal title to assets, but has limited responsibilities, essentially where the trustee acts as a passive holder of assets for the benefit of another. This curse is where the bare trust was presented as fact within the legal fiction that has an authorized version of the Bible to be sworn upon within the legal system. Here's why. Let's read it. An alternative read of Genesis 9:20-27. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked in backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father naked. When Noah awoke from his wine and found what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves. Will he be to his brothers?" He also said, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be the slave of Japheth." Well, if we don't understand Genesis or genealogy of a house, we wouldn't fully understand the context of what this implies and how manorialism, feudalism, and hierarchical power structures of a bureaucracy in a different way lay out here, because Noah's three sons' names were Shem, Japheth, and Ham. Canaan in this story comes from Ham. So Shem implies fame, reputation, or identity. And Shem, the character in the Bible, is traditionally considered the ancestor of the Semitic people, including the Israelites. Now, Japheth sounds like the Hebrew word for extend and means to expand or to make spacious. whereas ham is often associated with heat or blackness. And this makes me think of the black hole, which has a white hole also. But he is considered the ancestor of African and some Middle Eastern peoples. And since Canaan stems from Ham's line, it's interesting that canon sounds a lot like church canons. So what are they? Church canons are rules or laws established by a church authority to govern doctrine, practices, and administration within a religious organization. Different branches of Christianity have their own canon law systems, such as the Roman Catholic Church, which is governed by the Code of Canon Law, Eastern Orthodox Church, which uses sacred canons from early church councils. Anglican Communion has its own canons that vary by province, and Protestant churches, some have formal canons while others follow more flexible guidelines. The point is that every specification means that there is a different formulation written on the court, which is what the page is referred to as, and where the canons are written on paper, which we didn't get into that in this, but I will next month when we actually talk about the 7 Hermetic principles, for instance, and the fact that the law of correspondence is not just where the mailing system is in play, but where we're actually then thinking virtually too, because that is when we see how it all ties back to the Manor Roll. By citing the Bible as your truth and the alleged word of God, then you are letting the garments of Shem and Japheth come before Canon's family. Remember that church canons are those rules, but this is the piece that we have to see. Our body is the temple our soul worships in every day. Church canons are what overlay us. So our body then goes into the temple of the church, and then it encompasses us and overlays our body. But our body is still what is essential. And so canon, these connections, I am not the one that ever thought I would be doing anything related to the Bible, to be honest. And yet it's vital, because the way I break down words, I thought, well, I wonder what canons means. And then I thought, well, it starts with I can, because that's very important from an empowerment perspective. And so then I thought, well, what is an? And so I looked it up, or I asked ChatGPT, and it said in Hindi or Sanskrit, an means pride, honor, or glory, which I found interesting. But then in Dutch or Afrikaans, an is a preposition meaning on, to, or at. And I've been talking a lot about Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp's house of being. But if Ham is considered the ancestor of African and some Middle Eastern peoples, then the use of Dutch or Afrikaans makes the most sense when you're dealing with Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp's house of being within Hiro's prism, which is a concept I coined as the figurehead telling the tale. And I tell you that tale again because the Greeks said that repetition is the king of learning. So if you're asking why, there is the answer. And here, man or witch, which will it be? I wanted to bring in, because what if the real question that got people labeled as a witch was, which craft are you specialized in, Miss, Mrs., Madam, Mr., Sir? Now, you who are here, can you identify the 2 entrapments that are in that question? Which craft are you specialized in, Miss, Mr., Madam, Mr., Sir?
Yes, it's the nomenclature, or the Miss, Mrs., Madam, Mr., Sir.
The titles.
Title, exactly.
Yeah. So there's one title. or the entitlements. Thank you, Alan, for contributing. It's the entitlements of titles, but then it's also the question of which craft is it? Is it law? Is it medicine? Is it business? What's your craft? Which craft is it? Was the question asked. And what if the manor house, known as Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp's maison d'etre, was where you can't be a man or woman because you have to take on a public persona or profile to use in there? Is it unreasonable to say that in order to play in the world of Facebook, you need to create a Facebook profile in order to be able to exist and operate there? Should that be offensive, or should that account be looked at as a threat? It certainly can be if it gets in the wrong hands or access to it gets in the wrong hands. But it's not so different from our person, which has 3 different perspectives connected to each account. And we're going to get into that during the next month and a half and beyond. But as this information goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, we clear the air. And whistling, I don't know how it conveys as well as what it does here, but I know I had something in my back crack a little bit or pop to get into alignment. And sometimes that's what can happen in the way that we move the body and we allow sound to move through us as well. So if you can't prove a fact you have taken for granted and haven't practiced doing so in advance, then it might catch us off guard by having to defend something we thought could help us, when in the moment it turns out to be the dead weight that David refused to wear when he was up against Goliath. This is a different perspective than I ever heard about David and Goliath when I was growing up. And I've never heard it told this way. But King Solomon was a direct descendant of Noah through Shem, Abraham, and King David. So the Old Testament story tells of a conflict between the Israelites and the Philistines, when the 2 armies were camped on opposite sides of a valley, preparing for battle. The Philistines had a champion named Goliath who would loudly challenge the Israelites to send out a warrior to fight him in one-on-one combat. If Goliath's opponent won, the Philistines would become the Israelite servants. But if Goliath won, the Israelites would serve the Philistines. No one volunteered to face this giant and risk defeat for his people in a standoff that had lasted 40 days before a young shepherd boy named David came to deliver his soldiering brother lunch and heard Goliath's challenge. He felt sure that he could beat the giant, just as he had done with wild predators after his flock many times before. And so he petitioned to the king, Saul, to let him be the one to take Goliath down. King Saul granted him permission, since no one else was willing to step up to the challenge, and tried to weigh him down with armor and regalia. But David went to the match with only his smock, slingshot, and 5 stones from a nearby brook. Goliath mocked him for being just a boy armed with a stick. However, David informed him that he came in the name of the Lord Almighty, and with that power backing his aim, he knocked Goliath out with his first stone. He cut off his head to ensure the match was won, signifying capitis diminutio, and made the Philistine people the Israelite servants, as per the accepted terms of the battle, which has caused untold amounts of bloodshed between these groups ever since. For what purpose? Capitis diminutio is a Latin legal term meaning reduction of status or diminishment of legal capacity. And there were 3 levels of capitis diminution within Roman society, each signifying a different degree of loss or rights, or a loss of rights. Capitis diminutio maxima was the greatest loss, which was a complete loss of freedom, citizenship, and family rights for prisoners of war. Capitis diminutio media was the loss of citizenship, but retention of personal freedom through exile or displacement. And then capitis diminutio minima was a minor reduction, usually involving a change in family status, such as adoption or marriage, which is why births, deaths, and adoptions are the second part of the Manor Roll. And we're going to be getting into that. But I just wanted to recap and then touch in. So, church canons are rules or laws established by a church authority to govern doctrine, principles, practices, and administration within a religious organization. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. They then walked in backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so they would not see their father naked. It is implied they did this because nakedness has been sexualized and manipulated, but it's precisely because it's powerful that it has been sectionalized as it has been. Remember, a bare or naked trust is a simple form of trust where the trustee holds legal title to assets for the benefit of another, but has limited responsibilities as a passive holder of assets under the unadroit usufruct corporatocracy that is becoming a technocracy that builds off bureaucracy. So crassy is the next part that we're going to get to, which is about power or rule. But I wanted to touch in with you to hear, and we can keep this part private so that people have an incentive to join.
Yeah.
And I also want to say and realize that I didn't preface it this way, but it's important that I do state it for the record, that the Bible is a trust instrument from what I have come to learn. And basically, within any manipulative system, there are classes, which means there is a high and low language that the masses speak and the elites speak. So legalese is your elite speak, whereas English is your people speak. And then dog Latin is when the letters are all capitalized, or where there's more than two letters capitalized in a word, it becomes dog Latin. Dog Latin appears to be English, but is dog-Latin because it is dogged, because it is bastardized. It is no longer true to the original, though it reflects. So basically, jurisdiction is like a chess game where you have a black and a white side on the board, and you've got two kings, two queens, two cavaliers, two bishops, or four of those, and you got two of each. You got one king, one queen, and then you got two of the cavalier, two of the bishop, and two of the rook. And then you have, what is it, 6 characters in the front of the pawns. So you got many more pawns. You've got more of the elite cavalier and the rook, which is the domain, and the bishop, which says buy shop, because buying is an action and shopping is an action. And you go to the shop, which is the venue within Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp's house, which is the mnemonic or memory tool that helps us remember which auxiliary verbs are not using a subject or that become a subject. It's the difference between transitive and intransitive verbs. There's so much to it, but basically you're becoming that which you did before when you are using any of the je suis la, I am there, la, being there in French, or je suis allé, I am gone. I am like there is je suis venu. Venir would be one of them. And I've got them written down, and I didn't get it into the PowerPoint, because what I realized is that death by PowerPoint is not what's going to really turn anything around for anyone. But being aware of all of these pieces that I keep on sharing freely, when it's very dangerous actually to be sharing the information that I am speaking to now without more people understanding. I'm not attacking your belief system. I am not attacking, well, I am not attacking, I am simply shining a light on that which has been in the dark and appeared solid only because you couldn't see there was nothing underneath of the ground you thought was solid. But it was a trap door, and that there's nothing underneath of that, which is why I'm so passionate about people understanding standing, capacity, and status. Those are what we are dealing with in the public. And our person is the propuria persona. Propuria is appropriate, and persona is the face or mask of the personality. But Brenda Williams is an amazing woman that I often reference because her birthday, her 83rd birthday, is tomorrow. And so we can all send Brenda big love if we would. And basically, she, in a note that I read from a conversation privately that we had in 2022, she said, your soul needs to trust your body enough to hold it during crisis. Your soul needs to be able to trust your vessel to hold spirit. I thought you were going to say something, Maria.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Your soul needs to trust your body to hold enough spirit during crisis. Like your body has to trust, your soul has to trust the vessel to hold the spirit to make it through crisis. So I couldn't paraphrase it properly because I don't have it rote to memory. But I do say that rites are actually part of the Manor Roll. And why the Manor Roll is so significant is because it is what tracks what is in the house. If you don't have record to record you to the moment where you wrote something, then how are you going to stand on that which you wrote except for to say, I wrote something. I don't know where it is, but I did it. Okay. Until you can show me, you're just speaking out of your ass. And I don't want to be an ass. I've been an ass many times. And that's exactly what the fool is seen to be when stepping out onto the major arcana's path of spiritual and character development. We're literally dealing with characters, which are archetypes, which are the type of arcs that then we are under as the frequency nets of the character of the qualities that are attributed to the name, the brand, the label. You say Empress and we get an idea of what you mean. It is the archetype, which is simply an energetic pattern that gets filled in with energy. It's the framework. And we choose what we fill it with, which is why it is so important at this time to bring the sacred back. To recognize scared use the same letters, scared and sacred, and the pattern that has captivated us and been the seed of the church for as long as we have been living is the scared martyr who is willing to die for a cause. I will die for it. That's the hill I'm going to die on.
But what is the sacred? What are we searching for? Trying to be?
I reckon it is the hill that we are willing to climb in order to live. To live for something is to be the sacred.
We're always climbing hills. That's what our life is all about. We have ups and downs, and
Okay, so have you guys seen it said that the sine wave is actually a circle unraveling? If you take a string and basically take it to the edge of the circle, and
Hmm.
then you take the pen and then you basically track, it will make a squiggle as it goes.
Hmm.
And it's a perfect squiggle. It's the perfect sine wave. It's to say that in health, we know that a flat line means there's no heartbeat. That's not what we're going for. Yeah, we want to have it calm and peaceful. Well, do you want to know what peace means by the olden days? We'll go back to my PowerPoint. I do want to honor the fact that, oh, I clicked on it, but I didn't hit the share button. So I was just looking at what I thought I'd already done. Been there before? Okay. I wanted to show you PAX. Who's heard of PAX before? I haven't finished it entirely. Oh, the mixed war between the public and the private. Papacy? Oh, the PAX. Here we are. Okay, the pacts we make betwixt ourselves. The term pax is Latin for peace, is often used to describe periods of relative peace and stability that were enforced or facilitated by the dominance of a particular power or empire, and sounds a lot like pacts that are made between one another when we want to ensure our word is backed by our promise. The Pax Dei, peace of God, and the Pax Ecclesia, peace of the church, were medieval concepts where peace was tied to adherence to Christian doctrine. The Inquisition's enforcement of orthodoxy can be seen as an extension of these ideals, aiming to ensure a peaceful and united Christian society under the church's leadership. The Pax Christiana, Latin for Christian peace, refers to an idealized period or concept of peace under the spiritual and temporal authority of Christendom, rooted in the belief that a society unified under Christian principles and guided by the Church's authority could achieve harmony, stability, and divine order. While not a formal historical period like the Pax Romana, the Pax Christiana represents the medieval church's aspiration for a Christian-dominated world order. Pax Romana laid the conceptual groundwork for centralized governance, infrastructure, and the idea of a hegemonic peace. During the Pax Romana, the Roman Empire ensured peace through military might and centralized governance, which influenced the church's strategies for maintaining order in later centuries. The Pax Mongolica facilitated trade and cultural exchange across the Silk Road, leading to the movement of goods, ideas, and technologies that connects the East and West through trade. The Pax Britannica carried the theme of hegemonic control into the global context, using naval power and colonialism to enforce stability. Pax Americana adopted similar principles but shifted toward soft power, example cultural influence, and financial systems, alongside military dominance. The Pax Christiana often implied a close relationship between church and state, where monarchs were seen as divinely appointed rulers who governed in accordance with Christian values, and the church provided spiritual legitimacy to kings, while rulers enforced the church's decrees. The Catholic Church saw itself as the ultimate spiritual authority, with the Pope as the vicar of Christ on earth, which comes from the Latin vicarius, meaning substitute or representative. This title reflects the Catholic belief that the Pope, as the Bishop of Rome and successor to St. Peter, has been entrusted with the authority to shepherd the Church on behalf of Christ. But that's when we then need to see that the See of Peter refers to the bishopric of Rome, which is the office and jurisdiction of the Bishop of Rome, who is also known as the Pope in the Roman Catholic Church. Catholic tradition says Jesus Christ appointed his apostle Peter as the leader of his followers, making him the first bishop of Rome, which is the role that established the papacy and made all popes after him followers of Jesus Christ. According to tradition, Peter requested to be crucified upside down because he felt unworthy to die in the same manner as Jesus, as an act of humility, devotion, and inferiority that cemented his status as a martyr for the faith. His tomb is believed to be located beneath St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City and is celebrated as one of the holiest sites in Catholicism. The blood of martyrs is said to be the seed of the church, according to Christian author Tertullian in Apologeticus, because it is their sacrificial blood that stories of conviction, faith, and heroism are told about pros who tested them and persecuted them in a public fashion. The stronger their conviction, the more energy the entity being invested into was able to grow. So, this has been a lot tonight, but pacts are the pacts we make between one another when we make agreements, but it's also the wolf packs with the PACKS for the pacts that we form as the wolves who are not in sheep's clothing, but are standing exactly as we are. And many have been standing alone because that was what was required when our pack didn't understand what we were getting at, and the fact that we were not attacking their beliefs when we were challenging them. We were simply asking questions we didn't understand. And when we didn't understand the answers, we were asking more because we wanted to understand so that we could do the very best that we could, because we're overachievers oftentimes. We're the ones that just, we want to contribute, we want to offer value without seeing the tribute to the con in contribute that has been embedded into the language that we use to such a deep level that we often confuse the con that is fused to that which confused us, to then use us through the usufruct, which I have a whole slide on here about, and the unidroit too, because uni is one and droit means right in French. So the unidroit is the one right way. And if we say that enough is as good as a feast, we can cap it here and say it's been nice. It's been such a pleasure to be with you, and I appreciate you for hearing what I was putting down. There's a lot more, and putting the presentation together for today really helped me be able to take the information that I put into a manuscript that I haven't shared and finished last year, yet no one has seen because there's just too much, and fire hosing just means you put the book to the side and it doesn't do anything. So I haven't wanted to capture the information in a medium that isn't going to be used or looked at or considered or challenged. And I want to also say that as the messenger for this message, it is not about me. And if I have made it about me because I've shared over people's heads, which then just makes me look in a certain way that doesn't allow what I've shared to actually stay with you so you can recollect it later because you collected it when you found it or heard it the first time, that recollection of being able to recollect what you collected from what I said is what is most valuable, because that's how you're going to actually share this information and see the riptide that the ripple is able to be when we see that awake is actually what radiates out from the pebble that is dropped into the pool of consciousness that we are all pulling from. So thank you very much for being part of this with me tonight and for contributing. And I can cut out the pieces where you shared, or I could leave it in and make myself look great, but I'm not so much attached. I'm not so much attached to that, to be honest, and I only just joke in that way because I appreciate the compliment, and what's most important to me is figuring out how to get this information into the hands of us who will actually use it, and to come together and to all put our pieces onto the table so that then we can really build the metaphoric Tower of Babel that doesn't see us Babylon the way that we have as babies in Babylon, where we stay a baby for a long time, as you've heard, I'm sure, it said about Babylon. But did you know Babylon was actually a language?
Mhm.
Isn't that insane? And so is there's yeah, there's so much. I wonder if you guys have anything you want to say. We've been here for, it's been an hour and a half. We covered a lot of ground. I'm really grateful that you got to meet Monica. I'm really looking forward to her course.
I'm super grateful that you're sharing everything, Laura, and you still have so much to cover for other day.
Yeah, I do. I would love for you to please let me know what you got from today. If you would, I'd really genuinely appreciate the feedback. I'd like to hear how you feel you can use it, because that's how you make this useful. So if you'd let me know, and there's that accountability for yourself to get something from it that's more tangible than just like, whoa. And it can help me better understand what you didn't understand as well, which could be the takeaway. It's like, where did you get lost? Like, where did you do a face plant and I just kept running? Because I didn't mean to. If I ran over you, I'm sorry. It was not my intention.
This was very interesting, but it was also very complicated.
Yeah.
Your application of language to all kinds of doctrines was just amazing. I liked it. I loved it. It was amazing. You've done a great job.
Yeah.
I'm just in my mind, I'm trying to look through ideas how I can apply it.
Yay. Well, I look forward to hearing what that fabulous mind of yours comes up with.
Well, thank you. You're so positive. I would I I would love to talk to you more precisely, but I know you're busy, so I don't want to make any comments or anything like that. But it would be great to know a little bit, just talk about these even more, maybe in the next session that you have.